All right, so now I'm going to go over what to do if they go c4. So c4, you kind of immediately want to know you're going to be better. We're going to take this pawn, and they're going to have an isolated pawn. But we're going to do this in the most efficient way possible. So we want to take on c4 after the bishop moves. So I'm going to show you guys two positions, and I want you to hopefully be able to tell the difference. Honestly, most people can't. It's okay. So let's say take on c4, bishop takes. We have this position, okay? So remember this position. Now, let's say, for example, we go knight f6, they go bishop d3, and we take. So we have the same position, but we have an extra knight on f6. So you can think about time travel, you saving tempo, saving time. Make him move twice so that you're just up a move in the opening. So what we do is we actually go bishop b4 check. So as you kind of saw before, they're going to have an isolated pawn. Actually, let me just do it this way. So take on c4, let's say bishop takes. Okay, so isolated pawn. So isolated pawns they're good in the middle game because you have two half-open files. So generally, white can get a better attack and has more active pieces when they have an isolated pawn. But isolated pawns are very bad in the endgame because no pawns can support it. So once a lot of pieces come off, you can kind of just pile up on this pawn, and eventually you can try to win it. So if you have the isolated pawn, you generally want to avoid endgames, and you want to try to attack, checkmate, and play aggressively. And if you're playing against the isolated pawn, you want to try to trade pieces and get an endgame. So that is why after c4, we go bishop b4 check. Because we already want to trade knowing that they're going to have an isolated pawn. So for example, if they go bishop d2, we'd be happy to take here. Take. And now we want to castle. Remember, we only want to take here after the bishop moves. So let's say, for example, so you can go knight e7. Knight f6 is slightly better. Honestly, it's player's choice. If you want to keep it consistent, just go knight e7. Let's say knight f3, castle, and let's say they move the bishop e2. So now that the bishop moved, we would take on c4. Hopefully, or now the bishop probably moves twice, and now we're just going to play against this isolated pawn. Remember, we did manage to trade off these bishops, so we already have a better version here against the isolated pawn. Some ideas for black would be like bishop g4, castle, you can go knight c6, and then you can try to go queen d6, rook d8, pile up on this pawn and try to win it. One mistake that I do see is you'll win this pawn, but you'll give up this pawn. This is a weakness. Weaknesses are weaknesses because they're always going to be weak. So we're in no rush to take this. Don't give up anything for this pawn. You will win this pawn with time. Just got to be patient. You got to wait for your moment. For example, if like queen b3, you would not take here. We could actually go knight a5, inducing some more trades. Let's say here, take, and let's even say knight takes. They still have pressure here. Actually, we would probably take, and then we would go b6, defending this, and then we can take this. Actually, in this case, funny enough, we can actually take here because if they take on b7, the knight will hang. So just remember, when they go c4, they're going to have an isolated pawn. You take after the bishop moves, and then the strat against isolated pawns is you want to trade, get to an endgame, and then basically squeeze them, torture them. Basically let them suffer. Don't let them get rid of it too soon and trade it off. And that is what you want to do when white plays c4 in the exchange French.